It's a Tuesday in October, and you're sitting in a lecture hall at Quantico, 3 rows from the front, reviewing pharmacology flashcards while the instructor walks the class through methamphetamine precursor identification. You're 26. You graduated magna cum laude with a degree in criminal justice from Penn State, passed the DEA entrance exam on your first attempt, scored in the 93rd percentile on the polygraph, and you have never touched an illegal substance in your life. Not once. Not in high school. Not in college. Not at any party where it would have been easy and forgettable. You are clean. You are disciplined. You are exactly the kind of person the Drug Enforcement Administration recruits because you believe, genuinely and without reservation, that narcotics destroy lives and that the people who traffic them deserve to be in cages. 16 weeks later, you pin the badge to your chest. GS7, assigned to the Houston Division. Your mother cries at the ceremony. Your father shakes your hand and tells you he's proud. You feel untouchable. Your first 2 years are paperwork, surveillance logs, and supervised by senior agents. You build cases. Small ones. A mid-level dealer moving 8 ounces of cocaine a week through a tire shop on Westheimer. A pill mill doctor writing 400 oxycodone prescriptions a month out of a strip mall clinic near Pasadena. You execute search warrants. You testify in federal court. You watch defendants get sentenced to 15 and 20 years. And every single time the judge reads a number, you feel it. You feel the system working. You feel righteous. You get promoted to GS9. You move into a nicer apartment. You start dating a paralegal named Jessica who works in the U.S. Attorney's office. Everything is precisely where it should be. Then your group supervisor calls you into his office and closes the door. There's a Sinaloa-connected network running fentanyl through the port of Houston, dozens of kilos a month, 3 overdose clusters in 6 weeks, 14 dead, including 2 teenagers. The DEA needs someone inside, not a confidential informant, not a wire on a cooperator, an undercover agent, someone who can pass as a buyer, build trust, climb the chain over months, and deliver the organization on a federal platter. Your supervisor tells you the selection was based on performance reviews, language skills, and temperament. He tells you it's voluntary. He tells you there's no pressure, but you can see it in his face. He's already decided you're the one. You say yes before he finishes talking. The training for long-term undercover operations lasts 2 weeks. They teach you how to build a legend, how to manage a front business, how to handle money, and how to survive psychologically when you can't tell anyone who you really are. On the last day, an instructor pulls you aside and tells you something that doesn't appear in any manual. He says that at some point during deep cover, you will be offered drugs. He says the official policy is that you never use. He says the unofficial reality is that refusing in certain situations will get you killed. He doesn't tell you what to do. He just looks at you and says, figure out when you get there. You file it away and forget about it because you are not the kind of person who uses drugs. You know who you are. 6 weeks into the operation, you're sitting in the back of a warehouse in Channelview with 4 men you've been cultivating. You've already bought 2 test quantities of fentanyl, wired $94,000 through a shell company the DA set up, and earned enough trust to meet the regional distributor, a man named Alejandro who speaks softly, wears plain clothes, and watches everything. He's testing you. You know he's testing you. He places a small bag of cocaine on the table and cuts 4 lines with a bank card. The 3 other men each take one without hesitation. Alejandro pushes the 4th toward you and doesn't say a word. He just watches. You think about the instructor at Quantico. You think about policy. You think about the 14 dead, the 2 teenagers, the 6 months of work that brought you to this table. If you refuse, the operation is over. Alejandro will ghost you within the hour, and you'll never get close to the network again. You lower your head and inhale. The rush is immediate. It hits the back of your skull, like a door opening into a room you didn't know existed. Your heart rate spikes. Your thoughts accelerate. Everything sharpens. You sit back up, and Alejandro nods, barely, and the conversation continues. You are in, that night, back at your undercover apartment. You write up the incident in your daily log and submit it to your handler. You describe it clinically. You use a controlled substance to maintain operational integrity. Your handler acknowledges receipt and reminds you to document everything. Nobody pulls you out. Nobody asks if you're okay. The machine needs what the machine needs. 3 months later, you've used cocaine 11 more times in Alejandro's presence. Each time it's part of the ritual. Each time you document it. Each time nobody objects. But something has shifted, and you can feel it even if you can't name it yet. The drug isn't just a tool anymore. You've started thinking about it between meetings, not craving it exactly, but remembering it, remembering the clarity, the confidence, the way it sanded down the anxiety of pretending to be someone you're not for 16 hours a day. You're living alone in a rented house under a fake name. You haven't spoken to Jessica in 2 months because the operational security protocols restrict personal contact, and the only people who call you by any name at all are criminals. The cocaine is the only thing in your life that feels honest because it does exactly what it promises. The first time you use off operation, you're sitting in that rented house at 1 a.m. after a 14-hour day of pretending. You have a gram left over from a buy that was slightly over the agreed quantity. The difference is small enough that evidence processing won't flag it. You know this because you've been doing this job long enough to know exactly how much tolerance the system has for discrepancy. You cut a line on the kitchen counter and tell yourself it's maintenance. You need to stay sharp. You need to keep performing. The operation depends on you being reliable, and reliability requires energy, and energy requires help. This is operational. This is professional. This is controlled. You do the line and sit in the kitchen and feel the gears in your head click into place, and you believe every word you just told yourself. That's the part that should scare you. It doesn't. By month 7, the pattern is fixed. You use with Alejandro and his people during business. You use alone 2 or 3 times a week to manage the psychological weight of the cover. You've also started taking Percocet that you source from a supply Alejandro's network moves through pharmacies they've compromised. You take it to sleep because the cocaine won't let you, and the stress won't let you, and the silence of the house won't let you. You've lost 11 pounds. Your handler notices during a face-to-face debrief at a parking garage off I-10 and asks if you're eating enough. You say yes. He doesn't push. The case is progressing too well to risk pulling the undercover. You've identified the supply chain up to border crossing, mapped 6 stash houses, and recorded enough conversations to indict 19 people. You are the most productive asset in the Houston division. Nobody wants to look too carefully at the instrument that's delivering these results. You start skimming from seizures. Not large amounts. A gram here. 2 grams there, always from quantities large enough that the deviation falls within acceptable measurement variance. You know the protocols. You wrote some of the protocols. You know that evidence text weighs shipments in bulk, not to the fraction, and that a 100-kilo seizure with 99.6 log will never trigger an audit. You take what you need, and you need more now because your tolerance has climbed and the Percocet isn't enough to bring you down, so you've added Xanax, and the Xanax makes you foggy in the morning, so you use more cocaine to compensate. And the cycle is so obvious on the outside that a first-year medical student could diagram it, but from the inside it feels like balance. It feels like management. You are managing. The cracks appear in year 2. You miss a check-in with your handler, and he has to call your undercover phone, which is a protocol violation that generates a report. You show up to a control by 11 minutes late, and Alejandro's people notice, because people in this business count minutes the way accountants count dollars. You snap at a fellow agent during a rare in-person briefing, and he looks at you the way people look at someone they're starting to figure out. You see it in his eyes. He doesn't know yet, but he's asking the question internally, and once someone starts asking that question, they don't stop. Jessica calls you from a number you don't recognize. She's been trying to reach you for 3 months. She's pregnant. She doesn't know who you are right now, where you are, why you disappeared. She thinks you left her. You can't tell her the truth, and you can't tell her a convincing lie, because the part of your brain that manufactures lies for a living is too exhausted and too chemically compromised to construct one on demand. You hang up. You sit on the floor of the bathroom and take 4 milligrams of Xanax and wait for the feeling to stop. It doesn't stop. It just gets quieter. The operation ends in month 14 with a coordinated takedown, 53 arrests, 12 kilos of fentanyl seized, for $100,000 in cash. Alejandro is taken at a gas station in Baytown without resistance. The U.S. attorney holds a press conference. Your group supervisor shakes your hand. You receive a commendation letter and a performance bonus of $6,000. Everyone tells you what a success this was. You smile and nod and accept the congratulations and go home to your real apartment, the one with your real name on a lease, and sit on the couch surrounded by a life that hasn't been lived in for over a year. The mail is stacked in bins your neighbor collected. The refrigerator is empty. The air smells stale. You're supposed to feel relief. You're supposed to feel the mission-complete satisfaction that carried you through every case before this one. Instead, you feel a hollow ringing in your chest like someone struck a bell inside an empty church. You still have drugs. You took enough in the final seizure to last 3 weeks, hidden in a shaving kit in the trunk of your personal car. No one checked. No one thought to check. You're the hero of the operation. Heroes don't get searched. 6 months post-operation, you are back at your desk, GS 11 now, working a new case, and you are using every single day. Cocaine in the morning, Percocet in the afternoon, Xanax at night. You found a dealer in Montrose who doesn't know you're federal and whose supply is consistent enough that you don't have to steal from evidence anymore, though you still do occasionally when the opportunity is clean. You spend $1,400 a week. You've drained your savings account. You missed 2 mortgage payments on the condo you bought with your promotion money. Jessica had the baby, a boy. She named him after her father. You know this because you drove past the hospital the night he was born and sat in the parking lot for 40 minutes and then drove home. You think about getting help. You know the DEA has an employee assistance program. You know there are confidential treatment options. But you also know that confidential in a federal law enforcement agency is a relative term, and that the moment you disclose substance abuse, your clearance is reviewed, your cases are reviewed, your evidence handling is reviewed, and every conviction you contributed to for the past 3 years becomes vulnerable to defense challenges. You would not just lose your career. You would unravel the work. Alejandro's conviction, the 19 indictments, the 14 dead, whose families got something that looked like justice. All of it exposed to appellate review because the key undercover agent was a user. You can't do that. You tell yourself you can't do that. And buried inside that rationalization is the truth you won't touch, which is that you don't want to stop because stopping means sitting inside the silence without armor, and you have forgotten how to do that. A new agent joins your group, 27 years old, clean record, high test scores. Idealistic in a way that makes your sternum ache, because you remember that feeling the way you remember a house you grew up in that has since been torn down. She asks you for advice on her first undercover assignment. You look at her and you think about every line you crossed, every gram you stole, every lie you told your handler, every night you spent on the bathroom floor bargaining with a version of yourself that no longer exists. You think about telling her the truth, all of it. The real truth about what this job does when it gets inside you and finds the seams. You don't. You tell her to stay sharp, trust the training, and document everything. She nods and thanks you and walks back to her desk with the same certainty in her spine that you carried out Quantico 7 years ago. You watch her go and you open your desk drawer and take 2 Percocet from the bottle you keep behind the field manuals and you swallow them dry and you close the drawer and you turn back to your screen and you keep working. Because that's what you do now. You keep working. You keep performing. You keep passing every test except the ones no one is giving you. And somewhere behind your eyes, in the part of your mind that still remembers what clean felt like, a clock is ticking toward a moment you cannot prepare for and will not see coming until it has already arrived. But that's tomorrow's problem. Right now, you have a case to build and a cover to maintain, and a version of yourself performs so convincingly that even you almost believe it. Almost.